Alright, this is about mud fossils. Before I get started though, I just want to show you that I do have a background in electronics and chemistry and all that business. I did this for many years, and you know, I do know what I'm talking about here when I say things, so just trust me. Well, you know, you don't have to trust me. I can answer any kind of questions that anybody might throw at me. So I have no problem discussing this with anybody. This goes back for years and years and years, and you know, you don't learn this stuff that quick, and you don't forget it that quick either. Now, this is the kind of stuff that I have here, and it's all been, you know, not all of it, but I've got 3 DNA tests, a bunch of CAT scans. It's all legitimate, and it's all real and true. And I found a stone that is literally the Rosetta stone, or I'm going to call it the Rosetta rock, because it has every type of mineral on one single rock that is a giant's toe. And I will show you that right now. But I have to clean all this mess up before I do. Alright, if you're familiar with the mud fossils and the videos that I do, I don't prepare. I just wing it, and that's what I'm going to do today. Now, I found what I am going to call the Rosetta rock. Everybody knows about the Rosetta stone, had the different languages so that they could understand what they meant. Well, this has all the different variations of mud fossilization, all the way down to crystallization, all the fibers, all the minerals, all the architecture of the mud fossil, and it demonstrates the decomposition and mineralization of all of the structural components within mud fossils. The gooey stuff, you know, the blood, and, you know, not the blood, but the watery sort of stuff evaporates away, and as it lingers in the ground longer and longer under certain temperatures and pressures and solvents that work their way through it and percolate, it changes and it becomes invaded and it becomes minerals. And then we're going to go over all this. Now, on the right over here, I'm going to go over this stuff first in that area, which will be to show you what tissues become as they petrify, and then I'm going to show you the Rosetta rock and all of the associated stones that show why I am making these claims, because there's nothing here that is just speculation. This is 100% verifiable by anybody that took the time to look at it, and it cannot be disputed. Now, I've already done DNA testing, had it sent out to the lab and had it sequenced and all that. We had 3 DNA tests done, and they all came back, and I sent them out as human things. I didn't just send a whole bunch of rocks out there. I sent the things that I knew, like this was sent out for DNA testing, and there's a lung, and there's another fingertip that we sent out. And then we had 7 things CAT scan. That's been CAT scan, other things. I got a bunch of them around. I get so much stuff. What happened was I dug a 200-foot ditch for drainage, and the stuff came out of there. Every rock that came out of there was a mud fossil. I had so much stuff I didn't know what to do with it. I still don't know what to do with it. So I just kept all the good stuff, and the rest I reburied, which was all good stuff too. It's amazing, absolutely incredible. You know, every rock that I have found is a mud fossil. That's it. Case closed. Some of them are in extreme states of mineralization, and some of them are literally still bleeding. Literally still actually blood coming out. And I mean a lot. I'm not talking about just a little drip tip here. I'm talking about blood. Alright, first thing you have to do is don't make any assumptions, alright? Don't say, oh, this can't be, that can't be, oh, it would have been this, it would have been that. Just listen to what I have to say, and then you can make your own decision, alright? But don't close yourself off to thinking. That's the issue. Now, this is the kind of preservation we get with the mud fossils. I hope you can see that. Sometimes I wonder what can be seen and what can't be seen. But anyway, this is literally a piece of meat. And this is the fascia flap right there. You see that? I don't know if you can see that. But that's literally the flap that attaches the fascia coatings of muscles and things. And well, fascia covers every single cell, even every single body part is coated with fascia, and that's why it has separated along the planes that it separates. Now that's the meat. Now let me show you. Here's what happens with bones, and this is not, you don't see these bones like in the deserts and things, because this has all the articulation. It has the you know, the cartilage. It has the cartilage bumps. It has you see, this is where the ligament invests. That little ball there, this tuberosity they call it, and inside there is all those tiny little holes. Those are where the tendon balls invest, and you find them all over the earth. They're giant stone balls around the earth, because that's you know, around the earth that's what happens, and that's where the blood flows up through there, and this one, and then the bottom. You see what happens? The bones get destroyed. Hold on. This is what happens in these mud fossils. They are completely articulated. I'm going to show you something that is very interesting. These are what they call wrapped with tunica. And the ancient Greeks knew this. Now, if you could see this, if you could see that line right there and this line right here, it'll become more apparent as it dries up. But that is literally wrapped around there like a you know, like a crescent roll or something. That's all I can think of. It comes wrapping around with this angle here. It just tickles me, this stuff. But that's just what it is. I mean, it's bizarre as hell. But that's and you can see here. See, that's what happens to the bone. It turns into this black stuff because it gets invaded by different minerals and molecules and acids and all that business. It depends on what kind of a thing it's in there. It could be an alkaline solution, or it could be an acidic, and it could be just in a regular pH, and it depends. Some of them are geothermal, and anyway, so that's the way the bones look. Now, and I showed you, here's the way blood actually rolls through your body. If you could see this, you see that black shiny stuff there? Your blood has two different states. It has an oxygenated state and it has a deoxygenated state. And what happens is your lungs push oxygen into the hemoglobin, and it transfers down, and it's like red. It's real extremely red in your body, but you know, it looks like rust because it adheres to oxygen in the air. No, but it would have come down here extremely red, and then it works through all these little tiny vessels. I don't know if those are, if you can see those or not, but the little tiny vessels there suck up the blood, and then they transfer it into the tissues, and by the time it gets over here, it's black and shiny and everything. It's so black, and then it gets sucked back up through the veins to go back and get done. And this is the outside of the flesh, and if you can see that fabric on there and these little dots, this is that's the silicon in your skin, and that's minerals in the skin. And that's this outside skin, and that's the way the blood transfers through the muscle. So now we saw that. Now, what happens in the bone? How does the bone get its blood? Well, here's a cap of a bone. All right. So that's the top and the cap of the bone. It's like this one here. Whoops, let me back this out so you can see. All right, it's like this one here with no ears on it. Okay, so that's the cap under there after the ears broke off. Well, underneath that cap is this. And what do you see here? You see the red and the black. You see? The black is on the right side, and the red, it'll dry up in a second, on the left side is that's called FeO2 blood, which is less oxygen. The O2 instead of O3. This is the O3 style. And that is going to go back up and get sucked back up. I mean, this gets sucked back up through the vein. Now, so that's sitting on top of the bone. So let's find out what happens at the bone. All right, so now you got this, and I cut it so that you can see. Now, you look at it here, you say, well, there's not much going on there. Well, hold on a second. you put a little moisture on there. When I first cut this, it leaked oil. It literally leaked oil all over the place. Well, not all over the place. I couldn't quite fill my car up with it. But this is, you see the little lines in there, you see the little variegation or whatever you want to call it, these, they almost look like tree rings. Well, not anything to do with tree rings. That is the bone. That's the bone. And the black is what they call source rock. And this one here has bled almost all its methanes and volatile organics out. Now, what happens after that? Well, if that didn't do that, you end up with this. You see here? There's the bone in the middle. Same deal again. Here's your tissue on the outside. Again, I don't know what's visible or what isn't, but I'm just going to keep showing it and hope you can see it. Now, that's the bone. It would be in the middle. There's a little bit of bone left in there. See the little white stuff here and there? And it's turning into mineral and stone and coal, and it's called coalification. Now, so we saw that, we saw that, we saw that, we saw this, we did see that, yeah. All right, now, so what happens after that? If let's take a hand, all right, because I did find a giant hand out there, and it's out in front in the woods, and it's deteriorating, but I took the pieces in here that I thought were most important. Now, this is a fingertip from that hand. It's been CAT scanned. It's fully articulated, and the only thing that's missing is the fingernail. And this is what they call areolar tissue. You see all these little, that's areolar, holy tissue holes. This at the bottom here is where the bone is here. And of course all the blood vessels were very, very apparent inside the CAT scan. These are the pads of your hand. If you, this is I think we figured this was a left thumb. And if you took your thumb and you feel you have a pad here and you have a pad here, and they're tough pads. They call that grip skin, and it's different than your light skin. Now this here is what they call an apical tuft. At the end, you see all those tuberosities and holes? There's ligaments that come down here, and at the end of the ligaments there's about a zillion little tiny balls, and they go into those holes. Those are the tuberosities, and that's what they do. Now, and this one here has completely eroded away. This is called the apical tuft. And if you look, there's a blood vessel and a vein and artery going in right in the middle over here. Now, those are all those tuberosities, and that's one of those little balls that's still attached on the end. And that strap comes back this way. And they all came out like this, and I'll show you that anatomical, but they all dig into here, and you can move your hand around. It's just the way it works. There's 3 ligaments that slide around. I have all the anatomical stuff up here, and I can show you that in a minute. Now, so we know what that first finger looked like, had all the flesh. We know the one that's always completely all the way to the bottom. This one here is in the middle. Now, here's what happened with this one. This is, it still has the veins and arteries and all that stuff. Now, you see that black stain there? That is they call this the distal phalanges, the very tip of the finger. And I'll show you what that looks like anatomically. Well, I'll show you. It's right over here. You see it? At the very tip. One of those is a gorilla, one is a human. All right? Now, gorilla thumb, or the gorilla's hand. All right? So now, that little tippy thing there, I don't know if you can see that well, but again, I really never know. But that's what that is. And that's what this is on this. Exactly the same thing. Alright, now, let's go back to here. Now, what we also have is the vein and the artery. And what happens in veins and arteries is the vein side here does not blow out because it has clamps that pinch off that will not let the vein stuff go back into the good blood. And these are where it would have blown out if it had a blown out, because those are where the weak spots are. And this is where those, you see that triangle there? They all have that. This one has it too. Okay. See the triangle? That's how the investment of the tissues come in here and grab right a hold of this and move that finger around. So anyway, let's go back to this. Now, that is the bone inside. There's your blood coming up through the, well, it's coming back. It would come back towards the heart. This one here is where it pumps down, and this blew out the side, and they do that. See, there's 3 holes, boom, boom, and up at the top, and those feed blood. Your blood is, your fingers are flush with blood. So this is another fingertip, which was found on that same hand, and this other one here, and then you have this one here, which is the knuckle. That and then I just barely scratched the surface of it. All the other stuff is out there. It's a huge thing. Now, that's the bone ball of the knuckle, and this is the tendinous material, and this is literally the top of the guy's hand. All right. Now I'm going to show you this anatomically, but this is where the ligaments run out. I mean, the tendons run down this way. There's 3 of them. One of them runs right down the side. You see the difference of the tissue there? And you see the muscle fiber all around the bone ball? That's just the way it is. That's how it's built. And this goes all the way out to the fingertip, but it's broken off. And that's the abrupt transition. They all have an abrupt transition where it transitions from the mineralized tendon out to the fleshy other part. It just transitions. All right, so we saw that. So that's the knuckle. We got the fingers. Now, they all have veins and arteries. All right, if you cut through a rock, you know, sometimes they're not easily to see, but let's see if we can see that. That's a vein and an artery. All right, now the vein is always filled up and black, or usually, because again it clamps up. The artery is either open and has purged itself, or it will be crystallized, or sometimes there's a little red, but not very often. Now, when these things separate, this will turn red. Now, I mean, when I first cracked this, it was literally leaking blood. And you see how quickly it rehydrates? Blood has that ability to rehydrate, and it turns red. So that's just the way that is. All right, this is a pretty good representation. Now, this is the anthesis, and that goes into the bone, and it anchors the tendon. The tendon is a very, very mineralized, it's called collagen type 1, and it's all mineralized. It's you don't have to know all the chemistry, but it's calcium, and it's bone material, same stuff, only it's in little tiny fibers. And here's the structure of the tendon. You see these tiny little fibrils? And that's what's in this. And they're tough. They're very, very tough. They're almost 100% stone, literally. But they're in such tiny little fibers, and they go back and forth, and they slide back and forth, so they strap. But they're so mineralized that I worked with a guy doing autopsies to understand all this stuff. He could take his scalpel and twang that thing like a guitar string. They scrape back the muscle fiber, which is real weak, and they go twang, twang, just like that. And he says when he cuts through it, it just dulls the scalpel like instantly, because it's all minerals, it's all stone. Literally, it's silicon. Calcium and phospholipids and that kind of stuff. Anyway, now down here you see the little balls. Those are the little anthesis balls, and collagen fibrils, and the balls that go into the bone, and I'll show you that in a second. All right, now we're going to do a little anatomy here. Now, that I told you before is the ligament, and a ligament attaches bone to bone. It keeps the bones from pulling apart from each other. Then you have tendons, which come down and they grab like on the sides of the bones where your muscles are that pull your leg up and down and pull your shoulder and all that stuff. So there are different types of, well, there's actually quite a few different types of tendon attachments now. But this is the one we're going to be talking about right now, which has all these little tiny balls. Now, that was what was inside that ligament attachment. Now, let's look over here. Here's your muscle. We all know what a muscle is, and it contracts and it pulls. Now, the tendon, which is here, you see the tendon? That attaches to the muscle. Well, and it pulls your leg up and down and does all these kind of things. Now, the ligament, see, goes from bone to bone. So that's a different issue. Now, and these obviously are bones. Now, the ligaments don't stretch like your tendons do. They stretch a little bit, but not very much. They're like springs, a very, very tiny amount. I think it's maybe 2 or 3% tops. Your muscle has quite a throw on it. Now, here's what invests into the bone, all these balls. Now, this shows you how they're growing over the course of time, how they invest in, and then they turn to mineral and all that, and then they pinch off, and you get that stalk. And once that is done, it's case closed for your tendon. They don't fix themselves, and this is a literal fact, and it was proven by the University of Copenhagen. They did a study where they took people from the 60s and when we were doing the atomic testing in the air, and they still, in their tendons only, have the amount of C14 that was in the air, a high amount because of the testing. And that high amount is still in the tendons, but not anywhere else in the body, because the tendons, once they set up, they do not go away. They do not reinvest themselves. They do not start over again, like your stomach and everything else in your body gets replaced. And that's why none of the other stuff has the same high concentration C14. Everything else in your body now has the same amount as the background radiation, because all of your molecules have been replaced, except these puppies. Now, and these are the balls that they find all around the earth, and because the earth is covered with giants and made of giants, they are giant, huge, giant stone balls, they call them. Well, they're not giant, they're just from giants. Yeah, I guess they are giants. Now, here's a scanning microscope shot of the tendon ball, and this is the attachment, and here's where it breaks right off of here, because you're seeing different types of tissue, and the body knows exactly how to make it. It's absolutely incredible how spectacularly variegated and specific the tissues are in your body. And inside your heart, there's like at least a half a dozen different types of tissues. It's not made out of one big thing. And that's, as you see here, the same thing. These are this is very fibrous and mineralized, and it has some bloody investments in it. And here it's what they call an abrupt transition between this the anthesis ball and the strap that it pulls back up to your muscle. So that's that. All right, and these are what they find. This is a house over here. They find these stone clusters all over the world, and that's because this is just exactly what I showed you a second ago. And here's where they anchor in. See the little tops? And that's just what happens. And they break apart, and they're a very stony matter, and it has like a shell around it. And these are the giant stone balls, and they're over in Bosnia. And this was the end of tendon emplacements. Anthesis balls that hold down that giant Bosnian pyramid. They think it's made by concrete, but it's not. It's a mineral flap, and I will show you that in a second. All right, here's a tendon mat. You see that? That's a tendon mat. This is that fibril that comes down and anchors this tendon ball into tissue that was below. This should not be ripped out of here. This is not right. That should be still stuck into there. And what would happen is, because it's stuck into there, this whole mat pulls back and forth along this strap. And you can see there's a whole batch of them. They're all over the place. And that is exactly what I just showed you a minute ago. And this mat is so huge in creatures that I'm going to show you what it turns into and what they use it for. And remember this little place here. Remember I told you about abrupt transitions? They break right here. And they break right over here. All right, when you move from one transition, from one matter to another, it creates these transitions, and that's just a matter of fact. And there's about 5 of them in here that I found, and I can see them very, very, very clearly in my stuff. All right, these were tendon mats, and that is the little strap, and they break off right there, and that strap would have gone down onto a ball that would have anchored in a bone. And what they did was they took these off and just squared them up and just broke the balls off here, because that's what they do. Now, these little things here, nobody carved those. That's how these tendon straps are made. They're little tiny straps, and that's how it's almost like a fabric that coats you, and then it turns into that strap, and then that strap runs along, and the ball goes into the bone. It's the way it works. And I'll show you I'll show you some tendons. Now, you see these tendons, these type here, there's about a zillion little fibers inside of this square block, and then they're separated by what they call SLRPs, leucine-rich proteins, which is the little mineralized bloody investment that goes here. It's like a sheath that runs around, and they slide within them, and that way they can all move independently. Otherwise they literally break, because that is stone. It's stone in there. Now, the same thing here. These are all the different types of tendinous material, and I'm going to show you a little mountain. This stuff is in this mountain I'm going to show you. Alright, you saw that picture at the bottom on the other one. This is the same stuff here on this little mountain, hill, or whatever you want to call it. That's the bloody investment, and that is the fibrous tendinous material. I'm sorry, that's what it is. They're both the same age. You know, they say, well, which one's older? They just took this stuff and carved it and played around with it. So that's what it is. They're both the same age. Okay, that's it for part 1. When we come back for part 2, you are going to meet my little friend, the Rosetta Rock.